You've landed at Spark Launch, the guide star for embracing what it means to be neurodiverse. Here, we navigate mental health triumphs and tribulations from all across the spectrum, charting a course through the shared experiences that unite us, and discovering how to embody the unique strengths within neurodivergent and neurotypical alike, igniting your spark and launching it into a better tomorrow. Today's guest is Neal Glendenning, founder of the Neuroinclusion Project, an ADHD advocate and innovator focused on moving inclusion from awareness to action through therapy, psychoeducation, corporate training, and community outreach. Drawing on his lived experience, Neal's work challenges outdated narratives and redesign systems so neurodivergent people are understood, supported, and empowered. Welcome to Spark Launch, Neal.
Wow, that's quite an introduction. I've never really thought about it in that way, really. It's funny when someone else turns around and says what you do.
Welcome to the show, Neal. You and I connected on LinkedIn, and I can see your passion in the posts. I can feel your passion for what you're doing. And I see that you are brave to being yourself. And that's what the universe is always calling us for, to step into our authenticity, our wisdom, and own up to our journey, because every journey is unique and everybody's perspective is coming from their angle. So it's valid. So I want to just dig into why you're doing what you're doing and where is that passion coming from?
Wow. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Basically, a couple of years ago, I went through a very difficult stage in my life. It was my second really bad burnout, and I ended up hospitalised through it. It was a really difficult time for me and my family. And whilst I was in hospital, it was a case of, it was sitting on the side of a hospital bed after going through another session with a therapist, which felt like deja vu. Where I just thought to myself that there's got to be something better. There's got to be something out there that can actually treat ADHD or AuDHD, something out there for neurodivergent people. And what I came to find is there actually isn't. It's the same thing time and time again, relying off the same therapies that weren't even designed for ADHD, that have very limited capacity to treat ADHD in their current form. And I decided to go on a journey. And that was, 2.5 years ago now. And in that 2.5 years, I spent 2 years of that. I've been writing books and creating therapy. I've designed an end-to-end care therapeutic pathway for ADHD. I've come up with a new app to support ADHD. There's a lot of things that's gone on in the first 2 years. And then in the last 6 months, I've been focused on trying to get the word out there. I looked at several different platforms, and the one that really struck me was LinkedIn. And so I chose to go on LinkedIn because I like the tone. I like the challenge that you get on LinkedIn. It's not just about everybody saying, "Oh, I really like your post" or whatever. It's actually getting wisdom from other people. It's being challenged about what you're saying. It makes you look at yourself. There's several people on LinkedIn that challenge me regularly, and it's good that they do, because whenever I get a challenge, it just makes me really think about what I've said and the way I've said it. And is it something that I really do believe in? Or is it something that I need to change in me? And that platform's definitely done that. And the audience is growing on there. The network that I have on there is growing every day, which is really great, because the more people that are actually connecting or following or whatever way they choose to be involved, it gives me more wisdom. It enables me to see things from other people's point of view. And one of the biggest things about it is it actually makes me realise for the first time in my life that I'm not going through this alone. That's a real revelation, to actually find that there's so many people out there, not people that are, there's people out there that are really suffering with ADHD. It is debilitating. I've lived that debilitating life with ADHD. I live it every day, really. But there's people out there that are very successful, that have found ways to control ADHD, if you like, or they found the switch to turn on and off their passions and their abilities, and they're sharing that, which means that we can all take steps forward. It's really is something.
Yeah, thank you. And I believe that it's a collective wisdom, right? We all have wisdom from our own journey, and we all learn from each other. And it is a pool of knowledge, because our journey, our experiences are making us look at it from different angles. And when you pull it all together, you come up with this collective wisdom. And thanks to LinkedIn, one day I just took my phone and started making videos and putting myself out there without the fear of judgment, which is something that we all struggle with, because we want to be liked, we want to connect, we want to be loved. But what's happened with LinkedIn is that we found this network, people who've gone through similar experiences. And as you went through the deepest pain and you realized you're in that deepest pain when you were in the hospital, there were some self-realizations. And then you were drawn to go towards those realizations and actually serve the community. And that's what just made me connect to you. And I can feel that.
Yeah, it's not about money or anything like that for me. It's literally making a difference. It's bringing about change. The system that I've created, built it for the NHS here in the UK. It's a system that could very easily be privatised, but it's not the direction that I want it to go in. I want it to make a difference to the people that need it the most, not to those that just want to make money. The system is the first of its kind. It's completely unique. It's very hard to go into much detail about it, really, without sort of giving it all away. But there's 3 different areas to this. It's basically, I've created a hub, which is an app that supports people from the moment that you refer into the system. This app gives you the support that you're looking for, both virtually and reality. It's quite something else. The therapy that I've created is the first ADHD therapy that's been created specifically for ADHD. It's a multimodal therapy. It combines 5 different therapy types, can last anywhere from 10 to 16 weeks, fully flexible. It really is something special. And then the last part of it is the actual care pathway itself. So designing a whole new structure for the care of ADHD, right the way from pre-diagnosis, the support is there, through diagnosis to post-diagnosis support, and then lifetime support. So not just being discharged at the end of it when they say you're better. It doesn't work like that. It's there for you whenever you need it. So you may feel well today, you may feel well in a year's time, but in 18 months' time, you might feel that you're going down the rabbit hole again as such, and you need that support again, and you have access to that. It's really, really is something. It took a lot for me to actually do it all, really. But it all kind of fell together, if you like, by accident. But it's its own ecosystem. And again, it's multimodal. The whole system's multimodal, and it's modular. So it can be, different aspects can be added onto it. But the initial structure supports 20 separate mental health conditions straight away. But the main one that I've built it for is ADHD.
So, I mean, that's something you completely built from the ground up, piece by piece. And that's obviously you don't want to go into like great detail on how it all works and what exactly it is. But my curiosity from a creation standpoint is, how did you go about creating each individual piece and then how it also fits together? I mean, that is a Herculean amount of work to put down.
To be honest with you, Mike, I don't really know. And I've had this problem in my life before. It's just the way my head works. And that is the only way I can put it. If I see something and I think that there's a possibility in this, or if it's something that I'm passionate about or something that I really want to achieve, I basically go to bed and I get up the next morning and the answers start flooding in. It's just the way my head works. It's just really, really strange. I just see things, I suppose, that other people don't see. There's links that are there that, You know, even when I've created this, because I created this in 3 individual pieces. The first piece was the therapy, the second piece was the app, and the third piece was the care pathway. And I did it literally off of the thought of what I had when I was sitting on the side of the bed in the hospital. But then one evening, I was literally just sitting down. I wasn't actually, I was quite happily leaning out of a window, just taking in some air. And something inside me just said, and now you just join it all together. And so in that moment, it was literally a eureka moment of it's an ecosystem. It's self-supporting. It is a beautiful thing, to be honest, in its own right, let alone what it actually does and how this can make it. This system could make a difference to millions of people around the world. It's just a case now of it's not cheap and it's a case of getting the money together to actually build this. I've had interest in this and people have set goals for me to achieve before they invest. But there's also been people that have told me to create in little pieces to try and build it over a long period of time, which can be done, but it's, how can I put it? It's not what it's meant to be. I'm not going to go out there with some freebie stripped out system to try and generate some kind of interest or revenue to satisfy someone else's ideas of how something should be created, when in my mind this system should be built in its entirety and then put out to the world. I mean, in the UK, what is it? There's 250,000, I can't remember now. Yeah, 250,000 people thereabouts, if I remember rightly, that are waiting on the ADHD wait list for diagnosis. And this system, if built and put into practice across the UK, would clear that backlog within 18 months. So that means within 18 months, every person that's waiting for this would actually be able to have treatment, would receive their diagnosis. From the moment they go on the system, it would take approximately 8 weeks for diagnosis. And then from that diagnosis, then a care pathway would be put in place depending on how it's judged on the urgency of the case, as in to how quick treatment would be put into place. But the one thing about it is no matter how long that takes, which again doesn't take long at all for everybody, the support is there, both in the sense of human support through new roles that I've come up with for people to receive the support that they need, and also through digital support as well that you can access at any time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's literally all there, but it's a huge system, and it's basically going to take someone like the NHS or something of that size to actually look at this and go, yeah, we need to do this to be able to build this in the way that it needs to be built. But the benefits they're just phenomenal. They really are.
Yeah. Wow.
What you were saying about the fact that people have wanted to essentially have you build more compromised versions of it to prove it to them in a lot of ways. And I feel like so many times in pre-existing systems, they want, even if you can prove something is 100% efficient and is only upsides, they still have this need for it to be compromised in some way because that's more understandable to them than something that just works, that is something that is useful. And I feel like when it does come to trying to put in place better workarounds and better systems for people with mental health challenges, neurodivergent challenges, whatever, that there's always this feeling that if it's too, too efficient, that it's too helpful to an individual outside of the system, that must mean it seems almost too impossible to them. Like, I think there's a lot of people who are higher up who don't have a lot of vision and imagination when it comes to these things. And so they cannot wrap their heads around the bigger ideas, whether or not it's actually capable.
Yeah, there's always, they always seem to want the compromise. The thing is when you build a system and you build a lesser version of it, if it works, then the thing comes up of, well, why do we need to build the bigger system? And this is why I don't really want to get into that. Let's build a smaller version, because a smaller version will work, but it won't work in the way that the system's designed. It won't have the effect that it should. What is the point in building half of something? You don't see Mercedes building half a car, even though it'll run with no bodywork or anything like that on it and one seat. They build the whole thing, and they build it how it's meant to be built. And that's what everything should be like. You shouldn't have to settle for some system that's compromised in some way just because then someone in power can understand it, because they can't get past their own mind, the limits of their own imagination, I think is about the best way of putting it. I had a mentor when I had my last business. There was a guy who I worked with, and he was basically a computer whiz, really intelligent guy. And I went to him one day and started talking to him about projects that I was working on. And I asked him if he could make some changes to the computer system. And he turned around and said, well, no, I can't. And I was like, oh, right, fair enough. I was ready to walk away. And he said, but I can't. It doesn't mean that someone else can do it. You just see what I'm saying? And he turned around and said that basically any system is limited by the person that is actually in control of it, the person that is developing it. It's down to whether or not they actually have the imagination and the vision to actually see what you're saying and then actually make a difference and make it work. Because computers and everything can do anything. It's literally just down to the human interaction that puts the limits on it.
I'm so excited. It's always the humans that are the limit, right? Because ideas and imagination is how we manifest things into reality, make it tangible. So you have to allow for that. And when you meet a person who can only see obstacles, because there are people who only see obstacles, and we ADHDers are here bringing in visions that we go past obstacles because we know how to go around it. And so I've always realized that it's the people. And so we have to stop chasing people and companies and organizations that will never get us.
Yeah.
They may never get us our entire life, and just bravely our vision out there and allow for the universe to introduce us to the right people, because it happens. Not everybody is like that. So my wish for you is that you find somebody who gets that.
I think in time, I hope soon, to be fair, because it's desperately needed now. But I think with time that person will all of a sudden, if you like, come forward and they will see what it is. I've got academic support I'm working with one of the universities in London on this, and their support has been superb with various different ideas or avenues to go down to try and develop this further. The hardest part for me is the one group that I built it for, which is the NHS. So the UK's healthcare system is the hardest system to actually approach, to actually get anyone, unless it's definitely a system where, unless you know the right person that can open the door for you, it's nearly impossible to actually get in there. But I said nearly impossible. I'm determined that I will find a way to get this in front of the right person to where they can see this and see what it's worth. So then we can really, really move this forward. In regards to investment on the actual development of this, yeah, I'm hoping that investment will come. I mean, it's really not cheap, but then again, I've chosen the right companies to actually help build and develop this to make sure that it is absolutely first class and does exactly what I'm saying it's going to do. So, yeah, big things to come, Chaya.
Going a little bit back to your first bit of inspiration for all of this, you talked about going through burnout. What are some of the best ways both an individual and the health system overall can do better in addressing ADHD burnout?
Wow, burnout. It's happened several times in my life, but the last two times have been really major. And that was due to the role that I was in and the pressure that was put upon me. I've only now found out that the burnout that I suffered was due to being treated as just a number, if you like, a payroll number, and being, if you like, directed to be a machine rather than a person. I had no meaning in my role. I couldn't express myself. I couldn't be creative. There was something about the whole thing now, when I look back at it, there was just something about it that just stopped me from being me. They wanted me to play the game, which is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard of, because I don't play games. I didn't get what they were saying. I sort of understand now. You just have to do exactly what they tell you to do when they tell you to do it. You need to be a machine, and that's just not the way ADHD people work. We're not machines. We're more fluid. We flow with life. It's different. But how do you help that? How do you support it? I mean, for me personally, I've found meaning, which has helped my recovery. I've found a direction that I want to go in, and I'm going to pursue it no matter what. Everything I do is self-funded. I don't draw from anybody. And that's because this is a passion of mine and this is what I want to do. But I think for business, it's about giving people back meaning. It's about letting people be people again, rather than just treating them as machines. Listen to what they have to say, listen to their ideas, especially with people, with anybody really, but especially with people with ADHD, autism or neurodivergence. There is such a diverse way of thinking and perceiving things. It's unbelievable the benefit it can bring. The things that we spot. I mean, in my last job, the things that I spotted that could have saved the company millions of pounds, but I was shut down because it wasn't my manager's idea. So rather than listening to what I say, it's a case of, we don't do it like that. We do it this way. Yeah, but this is going to increase productivity. This will make this run smoother. It will make it go faster. So, for instance, instead of unloading a lorry and it taking an hour, we can do it in 20 minutes. You're saving 40 minutes per man in man hours. It's a big thing. Do you see what I'm saying? But no, we do it this way. It took away all of my... It was taking my insides away, really. It took sort of... It was more than blood that I was meant to give. I was meant to surrender my soul. Businesses need to get away from that. They need to get back to treating humans as humans. And I think that is the only way that this whole epidemic of burnout is ever going to stop. Get away from the machine. We've taken industrialisation too far, because now we're trying to industrialise human beings, which just won't work at all. Hence why we're in the middle of the collapse now, because that's where we're at. The system is collapsing slowly but surely around us. The one benefit of the collapse is rebirth. It's creation. From the collapse that we have now, the creation that will come from it. And I do strongly believe that it will be neurodivergent people will play such a major part in this world, getting back to humanity and living in sync and actually building a future that won't, an era that won't actually collapse. Because the agricultural era collapsed, the industrial era collapsed, the information era has collapsed. Everything does, because it's just built linear. There's no flow. It needs to be more cosmic, if you like. That's not the right word.
Yeah, evolution has to happen, and the only way is for old systems to collapse and allow for new ones to come in. And also I wanted to address that the point of the hierarchy that needs to stop, because from your experience, it was your boss who didn't get it right and didn't allow. And it's that power, if we allow for that collective power, distribute the power back to the humans, because every human is coming up with ideas. And but in today's world, the way today's structure is, it's top down. And that top down approach is stopping the evolution. And if we have to allow for that collective wisdom, you have to listen to everybody, even a child. And that's what, in my journey, my son taught me things that he actually taught me that I was closed because I was believing the system and forcing him into that system the very system that had failed me. And my child, who was 15 back then, now he's 21, taught me. But if it was my ego which had to melt to listen to him. And you can listen, if you start listening to everything around us, an animal, a tree, whatever that may be, we can get messages from them. And so that whole idea of hierarchy needs to melt away.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Hierarchy is it's a pain in the arse. It's just one of those things that's going to be the hardest part of all of this to change. But every system needs to change. It needs to change in education, work, healthcare, politics, environment. All of the systems that we currently have need to be rebuilt to where we actually do listen. And I know it sounds strange, but to the trees and the animals. And we need to listen to this planet because the planet is screaming out at us. And we're just not listening at all. We're just pushing forward like we always do, stripping resources, etc., without really thinking that at some point they're going to run out, just so we can increase the money in someone's bank account somewhere generally. And that needs to change, because if it does change, then wealth will be distributed more evenly through everybody. I think that's the bit that everyone's really fighting against the idea, and why everyone's trying to hang on to this so badly is because the people that actually have the money and have the power know that the system needs to change, but they also realise that for it to change in the way that it has to, they're going to have to relinquish power, and that they don't want to do.
Yeah, it is a power game. And what they don't realize is that we're all going to die one day, and nobody cares about that money and the power, and we're not taking that anywhere with us. What truly matters is how are you using your power to make a difference to the planet? So we all have to do our part. And when we leave this planet, I truly believe wherever we go, we need to look back at Earth and realize we've made a difference by being truly ourselves. It's that fear of letting go of power.
Yeah, it's also the fear of letting go of what you know, because every one of us we're very familiar in the way that the standard of life is, the value that we put on houses and cars and all those material things. Everything that we've been taught is that we have to have a certain standard of life, and obviously if you don't have it, then you don't have a standard of life. It's letting go of the belief in all of that, in the hope that the new system will give us more, but not more in material things, more in the way of life, more time to spend with family. Flexible working time at work would be superb. I mean, imagine if you're like me, I can go into work when I'm focused. I can go into work and get 2 weeks' work done in a day or two. It just all comes together. But imagine if I was able to go to work and get all of those targets and everything else done within those couple of days, and then I had a week off with my family. I'd quite happily go and put it all in for 2 days to then have that time with my family to recharge, to then go back and basically do it all again. It's not that I'm saying that we should all have this wonderful flexible time where we come and go as we please and so on and so forth, and we get paid the same money and all that sort of stuff. What we need to do is look at the idea of what we produce in the time that we need to produce it. Yeah. So if we can do it in 3 days and take an extra couple of days off, why not? Why do we need to be there for 5 days, slogging it out, doing all of the horrible, rubbish, mundane tasks, if we can achieve something in 3 days and spend more time with our family? I think it's a much better idea. What about the people like me with ADHD who, like a lot of other people with ADHD, comes to going to bed and then all of a sudden my brain just flicks on and I'm up until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But that's my time. That's like my prime brain functioning time. Now, I'd love to have a job where I could actually utilise that properly, instead of being up till 4 o'clock in the morning, getting 2 hours sleep to then get up, to then try and go to work, to do a mundane mind-numbing job that's meaningless, that just basically is going to end up burning me out because I've got no sense of any kind of worth from the business or from myself to what I do in that job. Let's give people back some value in their life, some value in their jobs. Let's just see where we go.
I was thinking the other day about the fact that remote work is, for the most part, you make less because you're remote work, like it's seen as less. So despite the fact that through it being remote work, you would think like, well, you have less overhead if you have remote workers. So wouldn't they technically be able to make more because there's not any place for them to have to go to, and you have to provide materials and all this? Like, no, it's seen as less because you own that person less if they're in your home. Sometimes it's this strange mixing of greed and avarice towards your fellow human being, and still trying to own them as wage slaves, essentially. That's where the term comes from, is they're still slaves, you're just paid for it. And that is such an interesting psychological shockwave.
Now you're getting into a very deep conversation, something that I've actually really researched on how we've ended up where we are and where it's basically originated from. But that's a whole nother conversation that is can be seen as walking on very thin ice, because it actually makes everybody look again at something that was apparently sorted out a long time ago, but it hasn't been. It's just been rebranded and camouflaged, if you like. Yeah. So I see exactly what you're saying. It is just, I think you hit the nail on the head. All of this has just got to do with greed. It is just literally greed. I mean, like I said, with this system that I built, or I'm building, I can quite happily go to private healthcare, because I know for a fact that there's companies out there that at the moment are looking for this. They see it as a bit of a unicorn. They are desperately trying to find the system that I've got. Yeah, I can make a lot of money, but that's not, I'm not driven by that greed. That's not what I want. I want it to make a difference for the right people, not just for the privileged. You know, once the system's in place, or whatever it is, if it goes private, if it goes into private healthcare, which it will, there's no if, buts or maybes. It's not something that I'll be able to stop. But if this system needs to be a public system first, it needs to actually do what it's meant to do, and that's actually help the people that need it most of all. That's something that I will stand by. I would rather not see this system. This may sound really harsh, but I would rather not see this system built if it just meant that all it's going to do is line someone's pocket. That's not what this system is about. This system is here to help people. That's what's got to happen. It's got to help the people that need it most. The waiting list that is there is only a fraction of what the true reality of the situation is, I feel. You know, all of the people that don't have access to health insurance and public health care, this system can help. It really can help everybody that needs it. As long as they have access to the internet or a phone, this system will be able to help. And that's most of the population these days has access to the internet or a phone. And that's worldwide, really. So when you create something like that, it deserves to be there for those people first, rather than what would normally happen, where it would go into private healthcare and someone would make an absolute fortune from it.
That's such a beautiful sentiment. And honestly, it's a empathetic rage of being that we kind of need to go up against the roadblocks that are systematically in place, that is sort of lords over us in so many ways. And it's great that you are creating the system, and for purely altruistic reasons. And where can everyone who is listening discover more about the Neuroinclusion project and your work?
The website is the Neuroinclusionproject.co.uk. There's information on there. I've got to update it all, to be honest with you, but there's details on there about the NdCare group, which is where the system is, basically. There is details on there about that. Otherwise, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll quite happily talk to anyone about this, basically. You know, I'm very good with replying to people. Sometimes it may take a little bit of time, but I do get back to people. I always like to make sure that if someone takes the time to respond to a post, that I will respond to them as well. It's just human decency, I think. If someone's taking the time to contact you, then make sure that you reach out, reciprocate that human decency. But yeah, I think that's pretty much the best ways to reach me. LinkedIn is probably the best one, but the information's on the website. And if they needed more information, then yeah, just reach out.
I'll include all those in the show notes that are, of course, at sparklaunchpodcast.com. There's also some great essays on there that I've read and took notice of that are very good. I'll be sure to include some choice ones in the show notes for this episode as well. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about this project you have.
Thank you, Neal.
Thanks, Chair. Really appreciate this. It's a real pleasure to be able to do this.